Good morning. So I'd like to answer some of the questions that people have about religion because I'm arguing with mostly Muslims on Facebook. I was until I got banned for 30 days. But anyway, they tend to make the same arguments over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, particularly about Christianity. Now, the main reason why I defend Christianity at all is number one, there is some good philosophy in Christianity that I really, really like, even though my version of Christianity is not the same as your average Christian. um, I'm still considered a Christian in that, I mean, I was born in America and we celebrate Christmas and, you know, beyond all that, but basically the fact of the matter is that Christianity and the ancient Israelite religion comes from astrotheology ultimately. But not entirely, because there's another philosophy in there about the human soul, which is mixed up in there together with this astrotheological tradition. So, but behind all of the religions of the Bible, of the Middle East, and of the Aryans and of the Egyptians is astrotheology. Their philosophy was born out of that. It was also born out of agriculture and being close to agriculture and the seasons. And so, but we get these. So most people don't know that, and so when they start looking at religion, they think it's all just man-made, and man-made all the religions. And this is some of their arguments that they make, is that these religions are all just man-made. They were just made up by men, and so they're all just trash, and it's all bad. That's what they think. So, first of all, the religions were made by man, but they got the religion from the world around them. And so you can't say that the religions are just entirely just made up out of whole cloth, because they're not made up out of whole cloth. They're made up out of the universe. They're made up out of the seasons, the changes in the seasons, the changes that occur in agriculture. I mean, that's the basis of many of, and well. Here's the thing: in the old days, the temple was where you went to pay. The temple was the government was the religion and the government were one, right? So no matter whether if you lived in the Middle East or if you lived in the North, or if you lived in Egypt or in Greece or Rome, the religion was where you went to pay your taxes, because there was no separation between the religion and the government, because the government was set up around this religion, and the religion was the sun, the moon, the stars, the changes in the seasons. This is how you determine when you're paying your taxes, right? You're paying your taxes because you're going to pay a portion of what you produced to the government, because you're part of this city-state, right? You're part of a city-state. The city-state has a territory. In that territory, you're given protection. And in exchange for that, you bring in some of whatever you're producing and give it to the people that are running the government so that they have goods. And then they trade those goods with these other people, these other governments around in these other territories. So when do you do that? You're going to do that on the certain times of the seasons, right? And so this is where we get our holidays, because these are the times of the seasons that are important. Either they're going to mark a time. Basically what they do is they mark a time. So this is when this starts, and then this is when you come in and do your offering. The offering, you give something to the temple, and then they keep that, and maybe there's also sacrifices and so on, whatever. The Treasury Department in the United States is based off of the Temple of Saturn in ancient Rome, and that is where you paid your taxes. That was the Treasury Department, is the Temple of Saturn in Rome, and it still looks like the Temple of Saturn today in Washington D.C. So anyway, how did this come about? Because the religion didn't just spring out of nowhere. The religion came from the changes of the seasons, the spring equinox, the winter solstice, the autumn equinox. Of course, you know all that. So, but let's look at some of these things that people say here. Here's this guy, Malan Baba. He's a Muslim, I shouldn't say his name, but you won't know who he is. Here's a Muslim guy, and he says, "Welcome to Christianity, where Jesus is God and God sent Jesus. God, Father is God. It means Jesus is Father. God is born, and people killed God. God is slapped, humiliated, and tortured badly. Father is God, and God became man. Jesus is God, and he prayed to God." So anyway, he's being very sarcastic there, because the Muslims have a big problem with the whole Jesus story. They have a big problem with the Jesus story, which is why they invented their own Jesus story. And that's the thing you have to understand. The Muslim Jesus story was invented because they didn't like the Roman story. Now, the first thing that you should understand, if you really want to understand the story, is that it's a story. And if you I guess that's the problem with taking things literally. If you take it literally, it doesn't make sense, and then you have to invent something else that makes more sense. Okay? Well, it wasn't a literal historical event, the Jesus Christ story. The Jesus Christ story is a story of the hatred for truth. Because Jesus says, "I am the truth." That should be a big clue right there. See, it's a story about the truth, and people hate the truth. People want to kill the truth. They don't like it. Anyway, in other words, so you have this fictional account based around this idea of people not liking the truth and people wanting to destroy the truth. Well, people wanting to destroy the truth is a very real thing that happens all the time. It's happened for, millennia, and it's still happening. And so Jesus Christ is, in the story, the truth. It's a fictional story about the truth, and he's the truth, and he came from God. You see, so if you understand that it's fiction, it all makes great sense, and it's a good story, right? But because they didn't understand the story, okay, the story was too complex, so whatever, it wasn't logical enough, right? So then they invented a logical explanation for Jesus, so they invented a fake Jesus. So let's go on to another one. There's a lot of good ones in here. From these folks. So let's go to this page here. I can't access anymore because I'm banned for 30 days. Here's one. How Christians answer this question. Muslim. Why did Jesus say he can't do anything on his own if he was God? Christian. Okay. Chris, show me the verse. I can do nothing on my own. Okay, so here's the thing. This is just a silly question. Let's not even get into it. That's just too dumb. See, the thing is, when you look, I guess, here, okay, there is one point, which I do agree, which is that the teachings, the writings of Paul and the teachings of Paul, those are his opinions. You started out with 4 Gospels, right? The 4 Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Guess those are their names. They had names like that back then, okay? John was a very popular name in that territory at the time. Matthew is really Matanyahu. Matanyahu, it means something Yahoo, which is the god of the Jews. Jews called God Yahoo, and the Samaritans called God El. So, John is the Ionian Sea in the Greek territory. Well, of course, the Greeks were in Canaan since 300 BC, and Persia and Egypt. Right, they were all over the place, so that they'd spread in there. So that's not unusual. I had an argument with a guy about what their real names were. Well, those are their names. I mean, those are their. If they weren't their real names, those were their pen names at least. And a lot of people thought it was unusual. Why do they have these Greek names? Because the Greeks ruled that territory since 300 BC, and the Judeans basically merged with them and became part of their culture. That's why. And the Judeans actually studied Greek philosophy and introduced Greek philosophy, and Philo Judaeus tried to harmonize. He tried to take Greek philosophy, because they were so enamored with Greek philosophy. They tried to explain that the Greek philosophy was the philosophy of the Old Testament of the Bible. And in some ways it is, because you look at Isaiah and he's talking about a God of virtue and a God of righteousness. And of course it wasn't exactly, but Philo Judaeus, who was Jew, tried to harmonize these things and show how they were similar. There was a similarity there between, because they respected the Greek philosophy, and they could see how it applied to their own philosophy in Judea. Anyway, let's continue here. Let's try and find another. Is it true that Muslims use can marry kids? Well, yeah, I think so. 10 dangerous things for what to be heard. Oh, no, that's not. That's just dumb. A lot of okay, what are the common ones they have here? Oh, here's a good one. Religious doctrine was created to people who want to control what you should think. And once you're told what to think, that controls your decisions, your destiny. So this guy's like an atheist. I would say that religion wasn't originally created with that in mind. It's been used by people in that way, for sure. But you have to understand, religion starts out on a grassroots level with people worshiping the world around them because it's so beautiful and because it provides life. And there's this whole beauty of the changes in the seasons and the stars in the sky and the phases of the moon and the positions of the sun. That's where they get their religion. And then there is, in the Bible, you do have what I would call kind of a takeover of the ideology to where it becomes militarized. But there is all the militaries of the time would have a god. But I think with the Temple of Jerusalem, it was a little different because they wanted to mandate that everybody only worship this one God because they believed their survival depended on it. They wanted to get rid of the other gods, and because they created this new religion because they were a race and they were in Egypt and they didn't want to worship other gods because that's like being a cuck, right? You're like taking someone else's gods and worshiping them. So they want to have their own religion. And so once they got that way, they never wanted to go back. So people would try to go back to like worshiping these other natural deities, and they opposed it. So there was some of that in there. But when you look at the Roman versus Bible type of stuff, like the Romans come in, the problem they had with the religion of the Bible wasn't that it was like. The problem the Romans had with the people in Judea at the time when they were in charge of it was that it was inspiring people to kill the Romans, and so it wasn't really it wasn't a religion of mind control at that time. It was a religion of rebellion, and it's pretty much, if you read the Bible from the time of the Exodus, it tends to be a religion of rebellion against anyone who's not part of your tribe that tries to rule over you, right? It's a religion of rebellion. I had a discussion with a fellow. He was an atheist, and he was going on about how. And I'm not even like this. I'm not even I don't take Christianity literally, but I do defend it because it's part of our culture, and I defend it in a certain way. I don't defend if you want to take everything in Christianity literally, that's your business. I don't. I think it's silly to do that because to me it's pretty obvious that it's a story. It's pretty obvious to me that all of the stories in the Bible are stories, and then you have philosophy in the Bible that's written by some of the prophets like Isaiah and these others, and then you have what's called the prophecies, which a lot of those are written after the fact. So I don't believe in the prophecies necessarily. Like the Assyrians will do this, and the Babylonians will do that, and the Persians will do this. Well, that all was written after they did it, and it was an explanation. The teaching of that, the reason they wrote it that way, was to say, look, Isaiah saw it all coming. And because they wrote it after him, Isaiah saw it all coming, and this is to show you that because we deviated away from God, we were destroyed. See, there's some truth in that. There's truth in that, and that's why later in Christianity, where it is used by the Romans as a mind control device. If you don't believe, you're going to hell. If you don't believe, you're going to be destroyed. You're going to be tortured forever. That wasn't the original idea. The original idea is if you deviate away from God, you will be destroyed, which is true. In other words, wide is the road that leads to death, right? Narrow is the road that leads to life, right? It's a very narrow path that takes you through this world towards survival and to life. And there's all kinds of ways you can go out and kill yourself or destroy your life, right? There's plenty of ways to destroy your life, and it's constantly promoted by the television, all these different ways that you can do that. You can go to Las Vegas, you can go over here, you can go over there, you can do all these horrible things that ruin your life. They give you all types of ways to do yourself in, So, anyway, let's get back to this. So he's saying that religion is just an indoctrination, mind control thing. I think it did become that at certain times, predominantly with the Roman takeover of Christianity, because first of all, the followers of the Bible in Judea were an enormous problem for the Romans because they wanted to fight. And this is also a problem for modern governments, right? This is why I believe the United States does not promote the Bible. This U.S. State Department, it promotes atheism, communism, all kinds of weird behaviors that we're not going to go into here because this is YouTube and you're not allowed to talk about that on YouTube because they're very sensitive to those topics. But what it doesn't promote is the Bible. And if it does, it promotes kind of a weird version where you have to be good and you have to be very passive and you have to be very loving for everyone. Well, that is a mind control technique. Because what's not promoted is to fight, right? What is it? Oh, I was going back to this thing. What is Exodus 15:3? The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is a man of war. Well, the government doesn't want you reading that. No, just look at the old seal of the United States of Benjamin Franklin. What does it say? It says, "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." Nobody in the U.S. State Department wants you contemplating things like that, okay? So anyway, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So shoot, I can't read. I can't see how much time I have on this thing. Okay, let's go back to the Facebook people over here. Let's see what else they're saying. Eve is blamed for the original sin. No, Adam is blamed for original sin in Romans. They're just saying a contradiction in the Bible. Why are there contradictions in the Bible? Because the Bible is an anthology written over thousands of years, and then retranslated, and then that part, the New Testament part, is written over, it was written about 2,000 years ago, and the thing is, there's just all these different people writing things in the Bible because the Bible is an anthology. So if you find something that contradicts one thing with another thing, it's because they're different authors with different opinions. See, it's a book written by men. And so you have, I guess it's the Muslims who think, well, our book came directly from God. Okay. No, it came from men, just like everyone else's book. These books were all written by men. These are books that men developed. So when you see something in the book that you don't agree with, well, that's because your opinion's different than the guy that wrote that passage. It's not God's word. It's man's word about God. Man is thinking about God. He's writing about God. And when you're reading it, some of it you'll agree with and some of it you won't. Some of you think some of it is obviously really good, and some of it's really bad. Like telling people to pluck your eye out or something. I mean, that's just a stupid. I wouldn't have put that in there. Pluck your eye out don't do that. That's terrible. And the problem is, we don't see people doing that, but some people are crazy. Some people are kind of, mentally deranged, and they could get into this thing where they think they have to follow everything exactly, and they have to pull their eyes. I mean, some people are that bad off, and you wouldn't want them to do that because they're hurting themselves. So I think it's a little irresponsible to have passages that are like that. I wouldn't write them. We shouldn't take it out. We should understand that these are men writing things. And it's just not that. There's stuff in the Old Testament about, smashing babies' heads in and stuff. All that stuff is obviously not good. But we got to look at it for these. This is a certain period of time, and these were the certain people, and they were developing their ideas about God, and they were in different wars. It's the Iron Age or it's the Bronze Age, and so you have to understand that that's why things are written the way they are at different times. That's why That's why in Exodus, God is a man of war, and in the Gospels, God is a God of love and help everybody. Because it's really in many ways, it's a totally different religion. It can never be divorced from the earlier one though, because it's part of it, and that's what it evolved into. But anyway, let's continue here. The Greek word Christos comes from root meaning pro. Yeah, we already know that. Christians all over the world got their message of the cross from a self-appointed apostle, Paul, who's not even one of the 12 apostles. Paul taught them this. Yeah, well, so what? So Paul said something. This is the Muslim guy. Yeah, so Paul made up his own version of Christianity. Yeah, I agree. But you know what? So what? I don't follow that version of Christianity. I think that the only thing you need to have in Christianity is the four Gospels. The other writings and stuff are interesting or whatever. Revelations is interesting. I'm sure some other people said some things about the four, but they're really talking about the four Gospels. I think Paul, whoever wrote the Paul story and Acts, I think that was probably, that part is really, to me, looks like a big scam. As far as to try to direct the religion in a new direction and make it into something it wasn't really intended to be. But so what? Then don't follow that part. You still have the four Gospels if you like those. I mean, that the four Gospels are the original Christian teachings and all that. And really, I haven't even spent a lot of time reading the other stuff because it's just not that important. Yeah, once in a while I'll find a quote in there or here or there that's kind of interesting or true, and it's usually you can find the same reference in the four Gospels, which is why it's interesting or true. So that's about all I have to say about that. Who is God? Well, God is the creator, right? He creates space and energy. Here's an atheist guy. This right here is so-called temptation of Jesus. Apparently the devil took Jesus somewhere first. Once again, it's a story, dummy. They keep saying, well, how is God tempted by the devil? Dude, it's a story. Duh. I mean, how dumb do you have to be? It's a story. It's a story. It's a story. We can't have stories because it's not logical. Well, never watch a movie again. Never read a book again. Never read a fictional, this or that. It's a story, dude. So, get off of it with your ridiculous. Did Jesus deny any partners Trinity with the Almighty God? Answer them with Jesus. If God were your father, you would love him. Okay, this is just that Muslim guy again, not understanding the four Gospels. And then they came up with another. So what the Muslims did is they invented a new Jesus because they didn't like the Roman story. So they invented out of whole cloth a Jesus that was supposed to be. They reinvented all the characters in the Bible. And then they go on about how the Bible is all these different translations. They don't understand that translations are just different languages from the original Greek. And that's probably their biggest confusion. They think, why do you have all these different denominations of Christianity? They think that it's because the Bibles are all different. No, that's not why. I mean, there's some slight differences in translation. And some of the translations are bad. But some of the translations are really good. We have the original Greek, and I guess I'll end off on this because I don't want to go too long. The original Greek Bible, written in 300 BC by Ptolemy, is the original Old Testament written in Greek. The original laws of Moses, the 5 books of Moses, we got in 300 BC with Ptolemy, who wanted a record of all these different philosophies and sciences around the world for his library in Alexandria. So we got our original Greek Bible written by the Greek Israelites for Ptolemy in Egypt in 300 or so BC. And then more was written after that throughout until the Christian period, in which case the Greek Israelites continued to write books. And that's where we got the four Gospels. So all of those are written in Greek are originally. Now, we can compare the original Greek to also the Aramaic version of the Old Testament and find that it's pretty damn near, it's almost identical. There's some slight differences, but they're very minute. Now, why are all these different? Why are there so many denominations in Christianity? Well, because you had the Roman Catholic Church take over the Christianity, and then you had people break away from the church, and then you had people break away and form their own churches, like the Church of England, and then you had all these different religions around the world forming their own versions of Christianity based on their interpretation of the Bible. But all their Bibles came from the original Greek translation. Because the King James Version comes from an original Greek translation. And it's pretty good. We have a Young's literal translation, but anyone can read the original Greek. So it's not like we needed, like they're all, you need the Quran because your Bible is corrupted. Well, the Bible isn't corrupted, though. We have the original Greek. We don't need your Quran because we already have the original. We have all the originals. Not only do we have the originals, but in 1800s they found the original Bibles in the polytheistic versions. So we have all the books, not all of them, but we have the creation story of Enuma Elish, we have the story of the floods, we have the story of the myth of Adapa, which is the food of immortality. We have the stories written on the walls of the Osirian cycle of Egypt. We have all that. All those books are actually pre-Bible. Those are the sources of the Bible. Many of them, all those Egyptian records. That's what Israelites came out of Egypt, right? They took stuff from Egypt and made their own religion out of it. But they were from Samaria, Acadia, Mesopotamia. So we have all those records now. We don't, you come along with this Quran. Oh, we have this new book and it came directly from God. Well, we have the originals and we're looking at your book, and your book, it looks nothing like our originals. You see, we have the originals. We have the original Greek Bible. We have the original Aramaic version. We have all the pre-monotheistic versions of those older books. We have everything. We have it all. And so you can agree with it or you can disagree with it. You can like the Christian story. You can dislike it. Whether you like it or not, you have the original to view. I mean, it's for you to see. We have it all. Nothing's been corrupted. I mean, there's different translations. You see what I mean? But you can go back and look at all the original documents. Going back before monotheism. It's all there. I shouldn't say it's all there. Enough of it is there to explain exactly how this came about. And it didn't come about by one God creating everything. That's the final point. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible and in the Old Testament of the Israelites, the New Testament of Christianity has some. And in Islam is quite a bit of a misleading idea about what God is, because it misleads you, because it came out of astrotheology. So it's misleading to think that God is in space, or God is in the cloud, or God comes down from heavens. No, that's not God. That's the astrotheological understanding of the gods. The true creator is not one God. He's not three gods. The true creator is a zero, which is also an infinity. So it's actually within you, because it's the life force within you, and you can't put a quantity on it because it's not quantifiable. It's literally a nothingness that's the source of life. So it's zero, but it's like in everything. So it's infinity, and it's causing the universe to come into existence because the universe is a dimension of the mind. It's a dimension of the mind. The closest anyone ever got to this was Hermetic science. Hermetic science, it was like a secret societies. Now, I don't think the Masons, do they even know this today? I don't know. I'm not a Mason. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. You had the Rosicrucians. I believe that they carried on some of this tradition that they got from Egypt. This is from Egypt. The Greek and Egypt. That's where you get Hermetic science, right? But they have 7 laws or so of the Hermetic science. It goes over the nature of energy, the nature of the energy in this universe. And of course, All is mind is one of the teachings. Well, all well, it's better. It's a lot better to say that the universe is a mind, and a mind is an image. It's a space with energy motion. It's a motion in space. That is the mind. It's not the mind isn't in here. That's not your mind. That's just flesh, a bloody flesh ball with hair on it. The mind is when you think of when you see a thought. You think of something and you get an image. You think of something, you get an image. You think of something, you get an image. You think of something, you get an image. The image is what we call the mind. You could say it's the thinker and the image would be the mind. You could put it that way. But there's nothing more to it. So what do you have in the universe? You have a space with energy motion in it. Well, that's the mind. It's the same. When you think of something and you see an image, well, that image is the mind, and that image is a dimension of the mind, and there's a space there with an energy motion. That's the mind. So the universe is a mind, and that you have a thinker, and you have a mechanical representation of that thought in space, which is space. The mechanical representation of thought is the space and energy and matter. The mechanical representation of thought is the universe. And so it's persisting, and that's what it's doing. So the creator then, because with astrotheology you had this whole, you've got the genealogy of the gods, and those are the stars and the sun and the moon and the planets and the earth and the water and everything. That's the genealogy of the gods, and at the source of that is this creator God. That's the God that they chose for the Israelites. They chose the creator God, but that creator God is within you. It's within you. It's with me. It's the source of creation. It's the source of the creation of the mind, which is the mind. The mind being space and energy is the foundational principle of all existence. So it's the source on which everything else is based, is space and energy, which is and that's it's a mechanical representation of thought. So there's your creator. Have a great day.